back in the USA. This is Where You Live with Gene and Tony. We're broadcasting from the Concierge Landscape Studios, and we're brought to you by Extreme Exteriors. Let's hear now from the Community Associations Institute. The CAI Minute is brought to you by Start to Finish Maintenance Contractors. Start to Finish provides 24-hour service for all of your home and business maintenance needs. Call Start to Finish at 952-259-1219 for your home, for your business, for your peace of mind.
Are you a member of the Community Associations Institute? For nearly 40 years, CAI has provided education and resources to volunteer homeowners who govern community associations and the professionals who support them. Visit caionline.org to learn more. That address again is caionline.org. CAI helps community association board members by providing online resources, in-person training, and hard copy publications written by association management experts. CAI offers community managers professional development, networking opportunities, and a certification program that's established as the industry standard nationwide. Minnesota has its own chapter of the Community Associations Institute to bring resources and tools from community associations around the country right to your home. Visit CAIMN.com to learn more and become a member of CAI today. Your community and management company will benefit from your involvement. Join the Community Associations Institute today at CAIMN.com and click on Membership.
So, Gene, tell us about this last editorial we have to talk about today.
Yes, it's called Remember These 4 Million HOA Rules. And this is by a gentleman named Matt Levesque.
Levesque.
Oh, Levesque? Okay.
I'd say Levesque.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is from the Inland Valley Daily Bulletin from Ontario, Canada.
A.
And he has... I think interesting writing style. He brings up some good points in a humorous way, but I think it turns a little bit. I think he gets a little
he gets a little ornery towards the end,
little acerbic towards the end here too.
Yeah.
But I thought it was worth mentioning. He says, "Remember these 4 million HOA rules." He says, "We live in a society where there seems to be no shortage of rules." We talked about that. We're a society of law. But he said some of the rules are common sense and things we really need to know, like driving our car on our side of the line on the road.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Some rules, he said, seem to be a little crazy, like the classic "do not remove" tag found on mattresses.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever removed any, Tony?
You know what?
You can confess.
I have.
Okay.
Now that I've gotten kind of old and surly, I just rip those tags
Yes.
off.
And he says it's the rules that are found between these far-reaching extremes that seem to just confuse and aggravate people, okay? He says nowhere in an urban neighborhood setting are rules more hotly disputed than the average homeowner association. True dat, I think.
Yeah.
He said some homeowner associations have rules about what plants you can plant, what paint colors you can choose for your house, rules about parking. Parking's one of the big ones, right?
That's right.
And how long you can keep your garage door open.
Yeah. That surprises people.
I've seen that too, yeah. There are even rules, committees, and processes to challenge the rules if you think a rule is unfairly applied.
There's no lack.
But no lack of rules for the average HOA.
Yeah.
The last one I think is good to have one if you think it's being unfairly applied. I think there should be a process
to dispute the rules. That's right.
So he said, so being American, he said, and being naturally predisposed to not like rules, why do so many people choose to live in an HOA or planned community? He said, I'd like to try and explain that. I guess I would take issue. I don't know that that being American, it means that you're naturally predisposed to not like rules. I think that is just in our nature as a human being.
Do you?
Yeah, I think there's a selfish. I think there's a selfishness
there's
with folks.
There's some cultural predisposition to that. If you look at Asian cultures, they have a little more predisposition to obey the rules, I think. Now, maybe I'm making a gross generalization, but my daughter spent some time in Japan last year, and that seemed to be the case.
Well, Anyway, he goes on with an example here. He says, when I was a kid in elementary school, and I love this example, he said one of the teachers engaged us 8th graders in a debate about personal rights. And he made his point by illustrating his right to swing his arms wildly when he walked in a line of people. When his various points were made, he closed by saying, your right to be free to do exactly what you want and swing your arms when you walk ends when you hit the next guy's nose. He said, I've never forgotten that. He said, except, of course, when I was intentionally trying to hit some guy's nose. That's a good example, right? And people talk about having rights.
That's right.
And you hear people say that with HOA. I have a right, but it's not an unfettered right to whatever you want. When you live with other people in a community, you give up some of those rights.
Well, and some of them aren't even rights. What we're asserting to be rights are not. They're not legally given to us. Well,
you're right. People overuse that.
They do.
Don't they?
They do.
They say this is a right. What they're saying, that's a desire. That's what you want. But that's not necessarily a right.
Right.
What HOAs do in theory is to control, he said, all of that wild arm swinging and a lot of other behavior way before it presents its an opportunity to aggravate anyone. I like that.
Yep.
That's a great way of putting it.
Of describing it. That's right.
They do this by making neighborhoods conform in appearance and by applying rules that we've been discussing about parking and painting and all of that. And we've talked about that in past shows too. Other people guy who was in an association, then after years he was out. And remember, and he said, I kind of like being back in an association.
Because now I have no one to go to when my neighbor plants something horrible or paints his house a horrible color or parks 8 cars on his driveway.
Yep, and that's exactly what he says in this article here. He said one of the biggest areas of debate with HOAs has to do with parking your car. He said in most HOAs there are rules about having cars on the street overnight. Some associations have rules about even parking cars during the day. They enforce these rules by contracting with towing companies. The towing companies are fairly aggressive about finding and towing folks, okay? He said, I can pretty much guarantee that if you park a car on your front lawn in an HOA, it won't be there by next morning. So he said here, as custom, he said, I have a personal story. And here's where it turns sour. He talks about a story about how, and agreeably, he said he was given a letter from the management company saying, hey, you have violated a rule, and we're going to need to fine you. He said, what is this rule? Because he did not have that. And they said, well, look in your rules and regulations. He said, I don't have a copy. He had a copy from his association, but not the rules from the Master Association.
This had to do with the Master Association.
Which he was also a part of.
Yeah.
He asked for a copy, and he said, well, it'll be $50. And then he blew his cork.
That went too far for him.
Yes, that was the big issue.
And you know what? I would be a little put out myself.
Oh yes, I agree. I agree with that. He ends by saying he was able to be a pest and to be able to get the proper people. He said
he talked to the
reprimanded.
right person. He talked to the right person, and I thought that was a good point. You know, he identified who the correct person was to talk to, and he doesn't sound like he blew a stack or threw his weight around either.
Oh, I don't know. I kind of sounded maybe.
Oh, wait a minute. He does say he sent a scorching email to the right person.
And he said, I was mad. So I think that's the point.
Sorry.
If a person gets, upset, you certainly have a right to that. But I think in anything in life, and especially a homeowner association, I think there needs to be civility. And instead of jumping to that conclusion, I think the only point I would make, up till this point, I agreed with a lot of what he said.
Sure.
I think the last point would have been much better said if he had continued to pursue that with a little bit of graciousness.
Yeah.
Something that's lacking. Don't let graciousness lack what you do
Yeah.
this next week, folks.
Yeah.
Have a great Sunday. We look forward to having you with us once again on Where You Live with Gene and Tony on Sundays here on AM 1280 The Patriot. See you next week.
Goodbye.